This is Tulsi Gabbard, the former congresswoman from Hawaii's 2nd District and President Trump's nominee to be the Director of National Intelligence. And Democrats in the media, same thing, were not happy.
Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence, a choice that has rocked the intel world.
Critics call her, and you know this, a pro-Russian sympathizer.
An American who's supporting Putin, Assad, Erdogan, and our adversaries.
She traffics in conspiracy theories and cozies up to dictators.
Someone who aligns herself with Bashar al-Assad, who aligns herself with Vladimir Putin, who traffics in conspiracy theories.
What does that mean to have somebody like Tulsi Gabbard running the nation's intelligence community?
Look, it's incredibly dangerous.
Tulsi Gabbard is incredibly close, it seems, with Vladimir Putin and Assad in Syria.
In Russia, the reaction to her potential appointment has been gleeful.
And now she's going to be overseeing our entire intelligence community.
Is the Kremlin celebrating this?
It's hard not to imagine that they are.
I mean, if I had read in The Onion that these were the people that Trump was picking, I would think it was just a joke. But this is reality. I mean, how can anybody imagine that?
But how did we get here? Well, let's go back into history a little bit. In 2015, Tulsi Gabbard was a rising star in the Democrat Party and the vice chair for the DNC. But Gabbard dared criticize then DNC chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz and her decision to only hold 6 Democrat presidential debates during the 2016 cycle, compared to the 11 that the Republicans had scheduled. A shorter debate schedule was widely seen as advantageous to Hillary Clinton. And it should be pointed out that there were 26 debates held during the 2008 cycle. So for her criticism, the DNC leadership took steps to punish Gabbard by disinviting her from the first Democratic debate being held in Las Vegas in October 2015.
As you know, I've been pretty vocal about calling out for more debates. I've been calling for more debates to give the American people the opportunity to hear from these presidential candidates, to listen to what they've got to say, to hold them accountable for their views and their positions. Because that differentiated from the decision that the chairwoman made from the DNC, I was told that I was no longer welcome to come to the debate.
But that was not the only reason. While the DNC publicly stated that it was taking a neutral stance with all the candidates, Gabbard privately accused them of being bought and sold by the Clinton campaign. And in July 2016, Gabbard's accusations were proven to be correct when WikiLeaks released stolen emails from the Democrat National Committee, emails which showed that the DNC was being far from neutral when it came to Senator Bernie Sanders, an independent who was running as a Democrat. So Tulsi Gabbard quit the DNC over her principles, unlike Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was forced to resign from the DNC over the embarrassment of trying to undermine Sanders in favor of Clinton.
She was booed off the stage. I've never seen anything like this. The chair of the Democratic Party, a congresswoman from Florida, who has been enormously popular within her district and is facing re-election, was absolutely booed by protesting Bernie Sanders supporters right off of the stage. She had to break off her speech, trying to shout over them, finally gave up and was escorted out by security.
Womp womp. Then, 3 years later, in October 2019, Hillary Clinton was interviewed by political strategist David Plouffe on his podcast, Campaign HQ. During the interview, Clinton pontificated about the then upcoming 2020 election.
They're also going to do third party again. And I'm not making any predictions, but I think they've got their eye on somebody who's currently in the Democratic primary and are grooming her to be the third party candidate.
So Hillary Clinton is saying that the Republicans were grooming a Democrat to become the third party candidate. She didn't say the name of this somebody in the podcast, but a spokesperson for Clinton would later confirm that she was referring to none other than Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard.
She's the favorite of the Russians. They have a bunch of sites and bots and other ways of supporting her so far. And that's assuming Jill Stein will give it up, which she might not, because she's also a Russian asset. Yeah, she's a Russian asset. I mean, totally.
Then she accused Tulsi Gabbard, who at the time was a sitting congresswoman and is currently a lieutenant colonel in the Hawaii Army National Guard, of being a Russian asset, and David Plouffe, the former campaign manager and senior advisor to President Barack Obama, agreed with her. And in case you missed it, even suggested that perpetual Green Party candidate Jill Stein is also a Russian agent.
Because she's also a Russian asset.
Agent,
yeah, she's a Russian asset. I mean, totally.
Stay classy, Democrats. Stay classy. In January 2017, then Congresswoman Gabbard embarked on a one-week fact-finding mission to Syria and Lebanon, during which Gabbard met various political and religious leaders from Syria and Lebanon, as well as regular citizens from both sides of the Syrian civil war. Gabbard also had 2 unplanned meetings with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad.
But obviously Bashar al-Assad is responsible for thousands of deaths and millions of people being displaced during this 5-year-long civil war. Did you have any compunctions about meeting with somebody like that, giving him any sort of enhanced credibility because a member of the United States Congress would meet with someone like that?
Whatever you think about President Assad, the fact is that he is the president of Syria. In order for any peace agreement, in order for any possibility of a viable peace agreement to occur, there has to be a conversation with him.
You know, there are people who will watch this and have heard your previous comments and wonder what's going on here. Why you met with Assad?
I'm interested in the truth.
Why it looks like you were very cozy with Assad, and why you've sort of taken his side in this argument.
That is a line that comes from political opponents or people who are not interested in actually confronting the truth about U.S. foreign policy.
And Gabbard is exactly right. Just because she met with the Syrian president doesn't mean that she's cozy with him or being soft on Syria. But the truth won't stop the mediocrats from going into full smear mode.
She has solicited a meeting with Russian-backed Syrian President Bashar al-Assad.
She has been accused of being soft on Bashar al-Assad, the dictator in Syria.
She has a weird affection for Bashar Assad.
She was widely criticized back in 2017 for meeting with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, who had been accused of war crimes.
She took a secret trip to Syria to meet with President Bashar al-Assad.
Any official needs to realize that other countries, their leaders, will try to manipulate our leadership for their benefit.
What do we know about Tulsi Gabbard? We know that when Assad gassed civilians in 2017 and our intelligence agencies determined that and Trump decided to strike those facilities, Gabbard doubted that.
Coleman Hughes is referring to a reported sarin gas attack in the town of Khan Sheikhoun in Syria, which occurred on April 4th, 2017. The United States quickly made the determination that it was the work of the Syrian government. 3 days later, on April 7th, 2017, the United States launched 59 Tomahawk cruise missiles from the Mediterranean Sea aimed at Shayrat Air Base, which is controlled by the Syrian government. Gabbard was critical of the missile strike.
Well, last time I checked, Wolf, Congress had the authority and the responsibility for declaring war, for authorizing the use of military force. So whether the president or the Pentagon or the Secretary of State says that they have the evidence, the fact remains that they have not brought that evidence before Congress, they have not brought that evidence before the American people, and they have not sought authorization from Congress to launch this military attack on another country.
And Gabbard was right. The U.S. was, and still is, not at war with Syria. The only reason we had troops there were to hunt down ISIS.
Who do you believe is responsible for that chemical attack that killed so many civilians, including so many children?
Here's the issue, Wolf, is what I believe, what you believe, or others believe is irrelevant. What matters here is the evidence and the facts. If President Assad is found to be responsible after an independent investigation for these horrific chemical weapons attacks, I'll be the first one to denounce him, to call him a war criminal, and to call for his prosecution, the International Criminal Court. Make sure that those consequences are there.
And Gabbard was very clear. If there is evidence that Assad was responsible for the sarin attack, he should be prosecuted for it.
Do you think chemical weapons were used at all in Syria?
Absolutely.
And so if it was not Assad, who would have used them?
There has been reports that chemical weapons have been used not only by the Syrian regime, but by other bad actors and terrorists within Syria.
On Gabbard's 2020 campaign website, she suggested that there is evidence that the attack on Khan Sheikhoun may have been staged by opposition forces for the purpose of drawing in the United States to retaliate against the Syrian government. Gabbard also listed multiple inconsistencies with the UN's report on the matter, found by world-renowned explosive weapons expert Dr. Theodore Postel, formerly of MIT. Among Dr. Postel's findings, the UN report claims that this crater in the road was a result of a Syrian airstrike and is the source of the sarin gas release. However, Dr. Postel and his team had determined that the crater was formed by the explosion of an improvised artillery rocket, and that this is an empty artillery rocket motor casing, not a vessel that contained sarin gas. This means that the release of sarin gas would have had to occur at a different location, and if it didn't come from a Syrian airstrike, then that would mean that we do not definitively know how or where the sarin was released, let alone who released it. And yet the Defense Department was certain who conducted the attack. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis said he personally reviewed the intelligence on the Syrian regime's April 4th chemical attack on its own people, and there is no doubt the regime is responsible for the decision to attack and for the attack itself.
And in the aftermath of that, she was hesitant to call him a dictator.
Fact check false.
There is no disputing the fact that Bashar al-Assad in Syria is a brutal dictator.
Was hesitant to condemn him for the actions that were taking place in Syria.
Again, fact check false.
There is no disputing the fact that he has used chemical weapons and other weapons against his people. This is not something I'm disputing, nor am I apologizing or defending these actions.
Was hesitant to condemn him.
Now, Tulsi Gabbard has never denied that Assad has used chemical weapons against his people. However, she was and still is skeptical regarding the chemical attack in Khan Sheikhoun in April 2017, and with good reason. Because in February 2018, 10 months after the events at Khan Sheikhoun, Defense Secretary Jim Mattis told reporters at the Pentagon that the United States had no evidence that the Syrian government had ever used sarin against its citizens. We have other reports from the battlefield from people who claim it's been used. We do not have evidence of it. This was Tulsi Gabbard's point all along. The United States launched $84 million worth of Tomahawk missiles into Syria, an attack that the United States had no evidence of having actually occurred, and still don't to this very day. But instead of being horrified that the United States launched an attack based on faulty intelligence, they're more worried about Tulsi Gabbard towing the neocon line and saying what they want her to say.
You met Bashar al-Assad in 2017. Do you believe that Assad is a war criminal?
I think that the evidence needs to be gathered, and as I have said before, if there is evidence that he has committed war crimes, he should be prosecuted as such. Everything that I have said requires that we take action based on evidence.
And based on the evidence, or lack thereof, Tulsi Gabbard's answer was perfect. But apparently, Dana Bash has shit in her ears.
But you're not sure now.
Tulsi Gabbard is absolutely the wrong person to lead D&I. And, you know, I don't know what her connection is to Russia, but there's no question that she has a weird affection for Vladimir Putin.
She's considered to be essentially, by most assessments, a Russian asset.
You know, on that job, you have to put American security first and not believe the crackpot conspiracy theories spread by dictators, and yet that is exactly what Gabbard does, for example, by repeating these crazy theories about supposed bioweapons labs in Ukraine, which was something spread by Russian propaganda.
Says the neocon spreading Democrat propaganda. Tulsi Gabbard never mentioned anything about supposed bioweapons labs in Ukraine, but she did talk about biolabs.
Here are the undeniable facts. There are 25 to 30 U.S.-funded biolabs in Ukraine. According to the U.S. government, these biolabs are conducting research on dangerous pathogens. Ukraine is in an active war zone with widespread bombing, artillery, and shelling, and these facilities even in the best of circumstances, could easily be compromised and release these deadly pathogens.
Notice that contrary to Max Boot's claims, Tulsi never mentioned bioweapons labs. Max Boot is a liar. And so is the Associated Press, who published this article. Gabbard's sympathetic views towards Russia cause alarm as Trump's pick to lead intelligence services. Tulsi Gabbard, President-elect Donald Trump's choice to lead the U.S. intelligence services, in 2022 endorsed one of Russia's main justifications for invading Ukraine: the existence of dozens of US-funded biolabs working on some of the world's nastiest pathogens. Moscow claimed Ukraine was using the labs to create deadly bioweapons, similar to COVID-19, that could be used against Russia, and that Russian President Vladimir Putin had no choice but to invade neighboring Ukraine to protect his country. You see what they did there? They said that Tulsi was endorsing Russia's justification for invading Ukraine by saying that there were bioweapons labs in Ukraine when she never said it. Gabbard, a military veteran and a former Democratic congresswoman from Hawaii, later said she wasn't accusing the United States or Ukraine of anything nefarious and was just voicing the concerns about protecting the labs. Gabbard later said, "That's what she initially said. That's what she literally said."
She has demonstrated repeatedly that she doesn't understand international affairs. She has been quoted as saying that effectively Putin was justified in having Russia invade Ukraine because there were secret American biological weapons laboratories in Ukraine. I mean, this is fantasyland stuff.
She never said that. Go crawl back into your f***ing hole, you warmonger. Ugh!
She has shown such terrible judgment. If she sided with Putin days after the invasion of the Ukraine, if she's saying all of these kinds of crazy things.
And then there's Tulsi Gabbard, Donald Trump's pick for Director of National Intelligence, who's been accused of, quote, traitorous parroting of Russian propaganda.
Gabbard has also been a consistent defender and booster and apologist for Russia's Vladimir Putin.
I mean, I think if you look at Tulsi Gabbard's own words, what you see is someone who has consistently sided with Russia and actually blamed the United States for Russia's invasion of Ukraine, literally parroting the Kremlin's talking points.
Senator Romney said that she was spreading treasonous lies about U.S. activities, U.S. alleged bioweapons factories in Ukraine.
Well, if Mitt Romney says it.
She has been known for echoing Kremlin propaganda, including claims like this.
Here are the undeniable facts. There are 25 to 30 US-funded biolabs in Ukraine.
Now, Gabbard
Stop. In the very short clip that Dana Bash played, Gabbard stated a proven fact that these biolabs exist. How is this in any way Kremlin propaganda?
Now, like COVID, these pathogens know no borders. If they are inadvertently or purposely breached or compromised, they will quickly spread all throughout Europe, the United States, and the rest of the world, causing untold suffering and death. So in order to protect the American people, the people of Europe, the people around the world, these labs need to be shut down immediately, and the pathogens that they hold need to be destroyed.
Again, notice that she never mentioned the word bioweapons. All she is saying that it's dangerous that those labs exist in the middle of a war zone and that they need to be protected.
The Biden-Harris administration needs to work with Russia, Ukraine, NATO, the UN to immediately implement a ceasefire for all military action in the vicinity of these labs until they're secured and these pathogens are destroyed.
Did you see it? Did you see the Russian propaganda?
Now, Gabbard denied that she was actually supporting those theories. She said she was just raising questions and accused critics of trying to censor her.
Says the teleprompter reader whose entire network is out to smear Tulsi Gabbard and affect the outcome of her Senate confirmation. CNN would even show this lower third graphic saying that Gabbard has praised dictators. I would like to note that A, I haven't found a single instance of Tulsi Gabbard actually praising dictators. I know you're shocked. And B, that's what the Democrats and the media have been saying about Donald Trump for the last 8 years. Oh, he's a Russian asset. In other words, they're just going back to the same old tired playbook.
Whether her sympathies lie with Russia or whether it's something deeper, I think is a known unknown. But the tactics are straight out of a Russian disinformation playbook.
She has done things and said things over the years that really cause great concern about where her sympathies and sentiments lie.
Says the former CIA director, who was one of 51 former intelligence officials who colluded with the Biden campaign to discredit the Hunter Biden laptop story, saying that it has all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation.
So I think that there's, great worry and concern about what does this mean.
Well, what I think it means is that Tulsi Gabbard is going to do everything she can to see that John Brennan's security clearance is finally revoked. Anyway, we all know that if Tulsi Gabbard was a Democrat cabinet nominee, the media would be praising her as the first AAPI woman to become DNI. But instead, we get the following trash from MSNBC's Joy Reid.
Tulsi Gabbard, who also, I was reading a piece that said that her, and everyone can have their own religion. You can have whatever religion you want, but she's a member of a sect that some deem perhaps a cult. And, she's a member of it, and people have said it's a bit strange, and it would have made it difficult for her to get a national security clearance. But now she'll be in charge of national security. And it's hard to imagine our allies being excited about sharing intel with us.
Gee, I just don't understand why Comcast wants to sell MSNBC. Good luck holding on to your show, Joy. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time, if there is a next time.